The Sayama Incident was one of the most controversial cases in modern Japanese history. At the center of it was Kazuo Ishikawa, who spent his entire life trying to prove he had been wrongly convicted. The case was filled with gaps in the evidence. Statements shifted. The trial itself faced years of scrutiny. And decades later, the case was even linked, strangely, to a well-known animated film. So, what really happened? Was Ishikawa wrongly convicted? Every question began on a morning in 1963. On May 1st, 1963, a high school student named Yoshie Nakata left home for school as usual. That morning, she also needed to stop by the post office first. She ate quickly and rushed out, so fast that she forgot her rain gear. At the time, the Tokyo Olympics were approaching. Japan had been preparing for years, and the country was eager for it to begin. Commemorative Olympic stamps had just gone on sale. Many classmates wanted to buy them. As the class representative, Yoshie took on the job of placing the orders. That morning, the post office was unusually busy. The paperwork took longer than expected. At 2:30 p.m., the final bell rang. Students packed up and left campus. Yoshie stayed behind to take care of a few things. About an hour later, she got on her bicycle and left the school. At around 4:30 p.m., heavy rain began to fall. The Nakata family stopped work early and went home, planning to have dinner together once Yoshie returned. But by 7 p.m., she still hadn't come home, and there was no sign of her. The Nakata family lived on the east side of Sayama. The school was on the west side. The distance between them was about 4 kilometers. Yoshie rode her bicycle back and forth every day. She usually passed Irumagawa Station, run by Seibu Railway, and she normally got home by 6 p.m. at the latest. Her father worried that the heavy rain had kept her at school. He told his older son, Kenji, to take the family truck and pick her up. The school had 2 programs, a daytime division and an evening division. When Kenji arrived, evening classes had already started. A teacher told him the daytime students had left long ago. Kenji remembered that his sister had sometimes taken the train home from Irumagawa Station. He rushed there, but he couldn't find her. By then, it was already 7:30 p.m. Kenji went back home to report to his father. When he got home, he walked to the carport in front of the house and froze. Yoshie's bicycle was parked there. He searched around the house. Then he saw something wedged into the gap of the wooden front door, a white envelope. Kenji picked it up. On the front were 4 characters, Nakata Eisaku. That was his father's name. The family gathered immediately. They opened the envelope. Yoshie's student ID fell out. There was also a letter. It said, "If you want your daughter to stay alive, then at 12 o'clock midnight on May 2nd, have a woman bring 200,000 yen in cash to Sonoya. My friend will come by car. Give the money to him. If you are even 1 minute late, you will never see your daughter again. If you call the police, your daughter is finished. If my friend who drives there does not return safely and on time, your daughter will end up at the bottom of the pond at Seibuen. Go look for her there. If my friend returns safely and on time, I will bring her back safely 1 hour later. Do not call the police. Do not tell the neighbors. If you do, your daughter will die. If my friend sees anyone else when he comes to collect the money, he will come back immediately and kill your daughter." On the page, the original date, April 29th, had been crossed out and changed to May 2nd. The original location, the front gate, had been crossed out and replaced with Sonoya, and the final 3 lines of threats were written in noticeably larger characters. Her father still chose to call the police. Kenji drove at once to the nearest police box to report the case. The officers there realized how serious it was and notified the Sayama police station. Police arrived at the Nakata home right away. The letter set the exchange time as 12 o'clock midnight on May 2nd. It wasn't completely clear. It could be read as late on May 1st or late on May 2nd. But no one wanted to gamble with a life. That night at 11:40 p.m., Yoshie's sister, Tomi, went to the meeting place carrying 200,000 yen in counterfeit bills. Sonoya was a local grocery and tavern. Nearby were wide stretches of farmland, with plenty of brush for police to hide in, but the kidnapper never appeared. The next night, at midnight, Tomi returned to Sonoya. More than 40 officers were lying in wait nearby. Then a man's voice came from a field about 30 meters away to the southeast. Tomi stayed calm. She called out toward the voice and told him to come out and talk. They spoke back and forth for about 10 minutes. Then the man suddenly went quiet. It sounded like he had noticed something. In a guarded tone, he said, "You called the police, didn't you? I can see 2 people over there." Tomi froze. The officers nearby panicked too. They couldn't tell if he was testing her or if he had actually spotted them. No one moved. Then the man shouted, "I'm leaving!" Before he even finished the sentence, he ran deeper into the field and vanished into the dark. Officers hidden around the area sprang up and chased after him. But it was the middle of the night. Visibility was poor. The brush provided cover. They couldn't see where he went. In the letter, the kidnapper had said someone would come by car. Most officers had been positioned along the main road, waiting for a vehicle. There weren't enough people in the fields. They missed their best chance to catch him. The kidnapper slipped away right in front of them. Tomi never saw his face. She only remembered his voice, timid and oddly gentle. She estimated he was between 26 and 33 years old. His accent sounded local. At first light, police began searching the farmland around Sonoya. Soon, they found shoe prints. One police dog tracked a scent to the southeast and stopped near Gongan Bridge on the Furo River. Another dog tracked from Sonoya north toward Kawago, but it also lost the trail in a wooded area. At 3 p.m., police found a rubber tie from Yoshie's bicycle in the woods. More than 100 investigators joined the search. Then, a few days later, police made a major discovery. On a farm road in the Irumagawa area, they found Yoshie Nakata. She was dead. When the news reached the family, the Nakatas were devastated. Yoshie was 16 years old. Her father was a member of the local agricultural council and was considered a well-off farmer in the area. Her mother had died 10 years earlier. Her oldest sister had left for Tokyo 8 years before and had cut off contact with the family. Their father lived in the village with his remaining children. The family had a barn, farmland, and a pickup truck. Kenji, the oldest son at home, helped run the family business. Tomi, the second oldest daughter, had finished middle school and stayed to help with the household. Yoshie also had an older brother and a younger brother. They were a family of 6. Life had been quiet and stable until it suddenly wasn't. When Yoshie was found, she was in a shallow pit less than a meter deep. She lay face down. A large stone was pressed against her head. A cloth strip covered her eyes. Thin cords were tied around her neck and ankles. Her hands were bound behind her back with a towel. Her wristwatch was missing. That night, with the family's consent, a forensic examination was conducted at the Nakata home. Yoshie had blunt force injuries to her head. There were drag marks on her abdomen and lower legs. She had been sexually assaulted. At the time, there was no DNA testing. Investigators could only determine that the male involved had type B blood. The official cause of death was strangulation. Her time of death was estimated at around 4:20 p.m. on May 1st. Her stomach still contained partially undigested food, tomatoes, potatoes, and other items. Classmates said the school lunch that day did not include tomatoes. Taken together, the clues suggested Yoshie was killed about an hour after she left school. Before that, she may have eaten with someone. By the time the Nakata family received the ransom letter, she was already dead. The letter itself contained misspellings, missing characters, and awkward phrasing. The writer may have had limited education, or it may have been deliberate. The shoe prints at the scene appeared to be from jikatabi, traditional Japanese split-toe footwear, with the big toe separated from the other 4. It offered good balance and traction, and was commonly worn by construction workers and farmers. There was one more detail. During the search around Sonoya, a police dog tracked a scent and stopped at Gongan Bridge. The bridge was a little over 100 meters from the Nakata home, and it sat on Yoshie's usual route to and from school. At the head of the bridge, there was a pig farm. The owner and workers there were all Burakumin. The roots of the Burakumin went back to Japan's feudal era. They were historically associated with jobs seen as unclean, and they faced long-standing discrimination. Even after the formal class system was abolished in the Meiji period, the stigma did not disappear overnight, especially in poorer regions, where prejudice remained deeply entrenched. At the time, Sayama was still a small, agriculture-based town. Japan was in the middle of rapid economic growth, and the gap between cities and rural areas, and between rich and poor, was becoming more visible. The pig farm by the bridge was run by 3 brothers, all Burakumin. Locals said the brothers had a history of violence and harassment, and that some workers had been involved in petty theft. In the eyes of many residents, the place had a bad reputation. A guard dog was kept on the property, and most people avoided going near it. 10 days after the crime, a farmer found a shovel in a wheat field more than 100 meters from where the victim had been discovered. Around the same time, the pig farm reported a shovel missing. Investigators later confirmed the shovel came from the pig farm. Soil stuck to the blade matched the soil from the shallow pit. That meant the shovel was believed to have been used in the crime. That pushed suspicion toward the pig farm workers. They were the ones who knew where the shovel was kept, and if someone wanted to take it without alerting the guard dog, they would have had the best chance. From the many workers, police focused on one man they considered suspicious. His name was Genji Okutomi. He was 27 years old. He had type B blood. He handled deliveries for the pig farm. 10 years earlier, he had worked for the Nakata family as a live-in laborer. He knew the Nakata household well, and he was familiar with the surrounding terrain. The exchange site named in the ransom letter, Sanoya, was also a place mainly known to locals. Police said Okutomi's handwriting looked similar to the writing in the letter. Beyond that, investigators had no other direct evidence. After 2 days of questioning, Okutomi jumped into a well at his home and died. In a note, he wrote that he had been suffering from an illness and could no longer endure it. Later, his alibi was confirmed. And 10 days after his death, he had been scheduled to get married. His family and friends also said he had been healthy. The case grew even harder to untangle. Police formed a special investigative team. They identified more than a dozen suspects over time, but each was eventually cleared. The investigation stalled. 2 weeks later, a seemingly ordinary theft case gave the investigation new momentum. Police had detained a man on suspicion of theft. His name was Kazuo Ishikawa. He was 24 years old. He had type B blood. He was a construction apprentice. He was also from a Burakumin background. To investigators, those details stood out. Ishikawa had grown up in poverty. He didn't like school. He managed to graduate, but he could barely read or write. As an adult, he worked a string of jobs at construction sites, a steel plant, a confectionery factory. He had a bad temper. He gambled. He often skipped work and got into fights. He never stayed employed for long. He didn't save money. Instead, he built up about 30,000 yen in gambling debt. He later returned to his hometown in Sayama. About a year before the crime, he began working at the pig farm. That employment history caught police attention, and they took him into custody. Investigators noted his prior record, his familiarity with the area, and the fact that he would have had access to the shovel. They also said his handwriting looked similar to the ransom letter. That day, police searched Ishikawa's home for more than 2 hours. They found a rubber strap. They said its size and shape looked similar to the one used on Yoshie's bicycle. The towel used to bind Yoshie's hands had a mark from a confectionery factory. It was a souvenir from a baseball game, and Ishikawa had attended that game. Yoshie's sister, Tomi, and the officers who had been lying in wait both said Ishikawa's voice matched the kidnapper's voice. Over more than 20 days of questioning, Ishikawa did not confess. He insisted he had nothing to do with the case. He said that day he had been working nearby with his older brother from around 8 a.m. until 4 p.m. He said he went home after that and didn't go anywhere else. He said he ate dinner at 9 p.m. and went to sleep, but only his family could support that account. Police did not accept it. On June 9th, police conducted a footprint comparison using shoes found at Ishikawa's home. The results said the shoe characteristics matched the prints found outside Sanoya. The truth seemed close. Police searched his home a second time, but found nothing new. On June 19th, Ishikawa began a hunger strike and continued to refuse to confess. But just 1 day later, his attitude changed completely. Ishikawa told police he had been involved. He claimed the main offenders were 2 former co-workers from the pig farm. He said his role was limited, stealing the shovel, writing the letter, and delivering it. But he could not give their names. A few days later, under pressure, Ishikawa's resolve broke. He confessed. According to his later confession, he had met Yoshie Nakata while working at the pig farm. He claimed he once made crude remarks toward her, and she ignored him. In his account, that angered him. He also claimed the ransom letter had been drafted in advance, before the crime ever happened. In his version of events, he did not go to work with his brother that day. At around 2 p.m., he got off near Irumagawa Station, close to Yoshie's school. About 2 hours later, he claimed he encountered Yoshie on the road as she bicycled home, and then took her away. Afterward, he described taking Yoshie's pen. He also described returning home and altering the ransom letter, changing both the exchange date and the meeting place. He placed himself back on the road a little after 6 p.m., riding Yoshie's bicycle toward the Nakata home. Along the way, he described discarding items: her bag, her watch, her textbooks, and other belongings. He claimed he parked the bicycle in the family's carport, then slipped the letter into the gap of the front door. On the way back, he described entering the pig farm to take the shovel, digging in the woods, and later throwing the shovel into a nearby field before returning home. Based on his confession, police said they uncovered 3 decisive pieces of evidence. On June 21st, investigators found a school bag in a field at the base of the mountain. The bag was empty. There was no direct proof of who it belonged to, but its style matched the one Yoshie Nakata usually carried. Police concluded it was hers. On June 26th, police found a red and black pen inside Ishikawa's home. It was hidden in an unlikely place, on the crossbeam above a doorway, only visible if someone stood on a stool. The pen matched the model Yoshie used. Ishikawa admitted he had used it to write the ransom letter. Police later concluded the letter had been written with that pen. On July 2nd, investigators found a women's wristwatch in a field. It was a Citizen brand watch, and it was confirmed to be Yoshie's. 4 months after the crime, in September 1963, the case went to trial at the Urawa District Court. In court, Ishikawa admitted the crime. After 6 months of proceedings, the court delivered its verdict. Ishikawa was found guilty on multiple charges, including murder, and was sentenced to death. But the very next day, Ishikawa withdrew everything he had said. He filed an appeal and insisted he was innocent. According to Ishikawa, police had made a private promise during the investigation. If he confessed, he would serve only 10 years. When the court handed down the sentence, he later claimed he had naively believed the harsh ruling was for outsiders to see. In his new account, he said he left home a little after 7 a.m. that morning. He admitted he skipped work, but denied any involvement in the case. Instead, he said he took the train from Irumagawa Station to a pachinko parlor at Seibuen in neighboring Tokorozawa. He placed himself back at Irumagawa Station shortly after 2 p.m. Instead of going home, he claimed he lingered there, worried his father would notice he had skipped work. In that window, he said he crossed paths with an acquaintance and exchanged greetings. In his account, he didn't return home until after 7 p.m. Police later tracked down the person he identified, but the acquaintance said they had no memory of that meeting. In October 1974, the Tokyo High Court upheld the guilty verdict, but reduced the sentence to life imprisonment. Ishikawa continued to challenge the decision and kept pursuing further appeals. In the decade after the crime, a series of events made the case feel even harder to understand, including the first suspect, Genji Okutomi. A total of 6 people connected to the case took their own lives. In the year of the crime, one witness told police he had seen a suspicious person near the Nakata home. Not long after that report, the witness died by suicide at home. He was reportedly a friend of Ishikawa. In 1964, 1 year after the crime, and after the verdict had already been handed down, Yoshie's sister, Tomi, also took her own life. The reason was never clearly explained. In 1966, one of the pig farm owners died by stepping in front of a train. No clear motive was made public. In 1974, another key witness died by suicide. He had previously said he saw a man riding a bicycle on the night of the crime, and that the man's appearance did not match Ishikawa. In 1977, Yoshie's second oldest brother took his own life. That same year, an investigative journalist connected to the case died under mysterious circumstances. The causes were unclear. The string of deaths raised new questions and led some to suspect there was more behind the story. During the court process, the case drew wide public attention. Because of Ishikawa's background, some Barakumin organizations argued that social prejudice had shaped the investigation and the trial, and that it could have produced a wrongful conviction. After the first ruling, they organized protests and called for a retrial. While in prison, Ishikawa taught himself to read and write. He also kept pursuing appeals. But his requests for a retrial in 1977 and again in 1986 were not accepted. Over time, public attention to the case continued to grow. In December 1994, after serving 31 years and 7 months, Ishikawa, then 55, was granted parole. After his release, he did not disappear from public view. He devoted himself to pushing for a retrial. He took part in public events, and he published books about what he said he had experienced, bringing the case to a wider audience. As Ishikawa kept pressing forward, questions about the original investigation drew renewed scrutiny. One allegation was that police had pressured him by suggesting his older brother was involved, and that if Ishikawa did not confess, his brother would be arrested. The legitimacy of the investigative process became a major point for those who supported him. A year after his release, Ishikawa met a woman at a public gathering. She also came from a Burakumin background and had followed the Sayama Incident for years. She was deeply moved by his persistence. The following year, they registered their marriage. In 2006, Ishikawa filed a third request for a retrial. 3 years later, the court, prosecutors, and defense began tripartite talks. Prosecutors disclosed 36 new items of evidence, including 9 audio tapes, samples of Ishikawa's handwriting, investigation reports, and statements from residents near the scene. The new material cast doubt on all 3 pieces of evidence that had once been treated as decisive. First was the school bag. It had been found in a drainage ditch, but the ditch did not match the location Ishikawa had described. In a diagram attributed to him, the ditch was marked, yet the bag was drawn on a different line. There were other problems. If the bag was Yoshie's, it should have contained her wallet and a notebook. Neither item was ever recovered. Ishikawa claimed he took the student ID from a trifold wallet, but Yoshie's wallet was a zippered type. The student ID was also larger than the wallet and would not have fit inside. The pen, another key piece of evidence, raised its own questions. To begin with, the discovery itself looked strange. Police had conducted 2 thorough searches after the crime and did not find the pen. One officer involved in the search later said he had stood on a chair and felt along the doorway crossbeam, but felt nothing, and yet the pen appeared later, hidden in that same spot. Then there were technical mismatches. The nib size and ink did not match what Yoshie was known to have used. Ishikawa claimed he used Yoshie's pen to alter the ransom note, but experts found that the edits, especially the more threatening lines, were written with a medium nib. The pen found at Ishikawa's home had a fine nib. The ink also differed. The pen from Ishikawa's home contained blue-black ink. Yoshie had used light blue ink in class that day. Testing also found chromium in the ink Yoshie used, but not in the ink from the pen found at Ishikawa's home. That meant the inks were not the same. No fingerprints from either Ishikawa or Yoshie were found on the pen. During the original trial, the judge suggested the victim may have refilled the ink, but even the internal dropper showed no fingerprints. The wristwatch raised questions as well. It was found on a road that had already been searched carefully. In Ishikawa's account, he threw the watch into a field that same night. It rained heavily that night, and the watch was not waterproof. Yet, when it was recovered, it was still running. Tomi also pointed out that the wear marks on the strap holes did not match her sister's usual way of wearing it. That suggested the watch may have been placed there later, or that it may not have been Yoshie's watch at all. Beyond the 3 main exhibits used to convict him, other parts of the case also came under renewed scrutiny. At the time, the court accepted that the shoe prints at the scene came from Ishikawa's split-toe footwear. But with newer 3D scanning comparisons, analysts reported clear differences between the scene print and the blurred sections typical of that kind of shoe print. Ishikawa had confessed that he killed the victim by choking her with his hands. But a newer technical report indicated she was strangled with a soft fabric. A ligature mark was present on her neck. Near the wooded area where the body was found, there was a field with a clear line of sight. A nearby farmer testified that he saw no one at the time of the crime, and he heard no screams. That farmer would have been a key witness for the defense, but he was not called to testify at the original trial. Experts also reevaluated Ishikawa's handwriting. The new assessment concluded it did not resemble the ransom letter, an opinion sharply different from the earlier view. Even the soil comparison tied to the shovel and the blood typing methods used at the time were later questioned. If Ishikawa had been wrongly convicted, then who killed Yoshie Nakata? A few days before the crime, Yoshie wrote in her diary, "That night, I argued with my older brother about my allowance again. I cried. I got into bed like that. Even under the covers, I still felt frustrated, so frustrated." That entry fueled speculation about the family. In the Nakata household, the father believed a farmer's child only needed to finish middle school, Both older brothers stopped at that level. Yoshie was the only one who went to high school. Some argued that her education could have affected future inheritance, especially for the eldest son, who was expected to take over the family business. In the years after the crime, Yoshie's older brother and her sister later took their own lives. The youngest brother was adopted out. In the end, only the eldest brother, Kenji, remained at home. To some, those facts made the family theory feel more plausible and deeply unsettling. If the killer had been Kenji, some of his odd actions would have been easier to explain. The Nakata front door was made of glass. From inside the house, it was easy to see the carport about 20 meters away. It would have been difficult for an outsider to quietly park a bicycle there, then slip a ransom letter into the entryway, without alerting the family. A family member, however, could have done it with far less risk. But doubts around Ishikawa were not fully resolved either. The towel linked to him remained a troubling point. And on the day of the crime, no independent witness confirmed an alibi for him. Those gaps were never cleanly explained. The truth of the Sayama incident remained, even now, shrouded in uncertainty. Years later, the case became linked to an animated film, Hayao Miyazaki's My Neighbor Totoro. In the movie, many small details suggested the story was set in Tokorozawa, just next to Sayama. In the movie, the mother was treated at Shichikokuyama Hospital. That hospital did not exist in real life, but Tokorozawa did have a place name that sounded strikingly similar, Hachikokuyama. In Japanese, Shichi and Hachi mean 7 and 8, a one-digit difference that some people saw as an eerie coincidence. There was also a story about the name Totoro. Tokorozawa was sometimes pronounced and written in ways that confused children. One widely repeated account said a friend of Miyazaki's had a young daughter who misread Tokorozawa as Totorozawa. Miyazaki reportedly found it funny, and Totoro stuck as the name. Tokorozawa sat right next to Sayama. The ransom letter even mentioned Seibuen, an area located in Tokorozawa. People later pointed to small details in My Neighbor Totoro. In the moving scene, one box was shown with a Sayama tea label. Sayama tea was a local specialty of Sayama. Some viewers went further and tried to match details of the film to Yoshie Nakata. They noted the older sister's name, Satsuki, sounded like Mei in Japanese. The younger sister was Mei, which sounded like May in English, and the Sayama case unfolded in May. They also pointed out the girls' ages, 12 and 4. Together, they made 16. Yoshie was 16 when she was killed. In the film, the younger sister went missing and the older sister searched desperately. Some saw echoes of the real-life panic, and searching after Yoshie vanished. Even the poster was pulled into the theory. It showed a single girl with pigtails, standing under an umbrella on a rainy night. That lined up, some argued, with the rain on the night of the crime. Other details were read symbolically. A station name that could be read as Grave Road, a sense that only the sisters ever saw Totoro. Moments later in the story, where the sisters seemed to disappear from view. And the final hospital scene, where the mother looked toward a large tree and said she could see them smiling, leading some to interpret the ending as something darker. Miyazaki later shared that, in the earliest concept, there was only one main character, the older sister. The story began on a rainy day, with Totoro borrowing an umbrella, but he felt it would be better if another child, someone fearless, also met Totoro, so he added Mei, and the story became one about two sisters. As for the theory that Totoro was a hidden reference to the Sayama incident, Miyazaki never gave a direct public answer. In 2007, Studio Ghibli posted an official statement on its website addressing the rumors. It said the film did not include any concept of Totoro as a Grim Reaper, or of Mei already being dead. The date of that statement was May 1st, and the Sayama incident began on May 1st. So many coincidences made it hard for some people not to wonder. On March 11, 2025, Kazuo Ishikawa died at the age of 86. But the controversy surrounding the Sayama incident did not end with him. Based on what has been made public, there were details that supported the idea that he may have been involved. Some people said the kidnapper's voice sounded like his, and parts of his statements included details that seemed to line up. But the case's core evidence also looked fragile. His account shifted over time. Key physical evidence raised questions, both in how it was found and in the details around it. Even the most basic issue, how the victim was killed, left room for explanations that did not fit his confession. So, instead of giving a number that only sounds precise, the more honest conclusion is this. It is hard to treat Ishikawa's involvement as certain. It looked closer to moderate or lower, with clear and serious reasonable doubt. And in the end, the Sayama incident may never have a final answer.